Well, hello, everybody, and thank you for joining our Colorado Proud webinar. We're really excited. My name is Barb, and I do business development here at the Colorado Department of Agriculture. March is beef month, so we're going to talk beef. We are going to look at the resources that are available and perspectives looking into 2024. Today, we have Julie Moore, the Director of Nutrition and Education at the Colorado Beef Council. And we have Janie VanWinkle, who is an owner-operator at the VanWinkle Ranch. So we're going to get some great perspectives about the beef industry here in Colorado. Just a couple things when our speakers are presenting. If we can just turn off our microphones, it does help eliminate background noise. And certainly we welcome and encourage questions. So, raise your hand or type them in the chat, and I'll be keeping my eyes open, and we'll make sure that your question gets addressed. And of course, we will ask for questions. If after the webinar you have something comes up and you have a question, don't hesitate to reach out to one of our speakers or myself, and I'll make sure you get connected. So thank you for joining. I'm going to stop sharing. And I'd like to introduce Julie. Julie has been the Director of Nutrition and Education for the Colorado Beef Council since 1997. She's a Nebraskan native, and she grew up on a diversified farming and ranching operation. After completing both a food science and a human nutrition degree at the University of Nebraska in Lincoln, Julie worked for Montfort Inc. for 3 years in the beef processing facility in Grand Island, Nebraska. She attended Colorado State University and received a master's degree in meat science, and then worked for one of the Burger King patty suppliers before coming to the Beef Council. She lives in Aurora with her husband, Rex, and she has 2 adult sons, William and Ethan. Julie, welcome. We're so excited to hear all your expertise from the Beef Council. I turn it over to you.
Thanks, Barb. I will share, and we'll get started. Okay, so when Barb talked to me about doing something, we were talking about looking at trends and looking at what kind of what we see from the consumer side at the Colorado Beef Council. But before we start that, I always want to make sure that people know what the beef checkoff is. And the beef checkoff was started by producers for producers because they're busy. They're doing what Janie does. They're out there farming and ranching, and but they knew that there needed to be some kind of funding to do some bigger projects. So it actually was voted on by producers, and it is part of the 1985 Farm Bill. And it's managed by USDA and with oversight. So the way it works is every time there is an animal sold, there's $1 put into a fund. 50 cents goes to the state where it's collected. That's why what I'm able to work with and we're able to do with things here. And the other 50 cents goes to the national programs. And that's where you get big dollars for doing research projects on nutrition or on food safety or doing big advertising and doing videos or education. So importers also pay a dollar equivalent. And the way they figure that is it's pounds of product imported based on how much a carcass would weigh. So it's an equivalent. The Colorado Beef Council is unique. A lot of state beef councils are run differently. In Colorado, it's part of state statute. And we have our board of directors in different segments. So cow-calf, feeder, dairy, processors, marketers. And so it's really a robust conversation when they get together and they can look at the whole beef industry. So in Colorado, our board of directors have done a strategic plan. Our priorities are to increase consumer trust, to make sure we're supporting international marketing, because there are a lot of products that go overseas, especially ones that we don't necessarily want to eat. A lot of livers, tongues, kidneys, the part of the cow that would be, if it was a pig, it'd be bacon, but cows don't have bacon. I mean, they're trying, but it's just a different type of fat, a different type, but it works great if you're doing like pho. It was what we would have here, or in Asia, it's like a beef bowl where they dip that piece. Thinking of bacon, dipping that raw meat and fat into broth to eat. And then we always want to highlight the multiple advantages of beef. We too, as a state beef council, have USDA oversight. So they look at our budget, they look at our marketing plan, and they go over our messaging. What that does for us is a great state and national partnership. So we are able to work both at the national level with contractors to the Cattlemen's Beef Board, who is actually the organization under USDA that manages it, as well as our sister brother state beef councils. So we work together on education, marketing, promotion, and research. And those are really the areas that the beef checkoff program focuses on. And when Barb and I were talking, she's like, Julie, why don't you share with the group what you do for them and how they might use you in the future? And so really, we have a lot of print materials. Recipes for your customers. Say you are going to a farmer's market, or you are a food bank and you want some ground beef recipes to give to your clients or customers. We have those. You call, they're free. We have a local directory, which we'll talk about more later. We have a website full of cooking tips. If you know someone who just has questions about beef, how do I make that prime rib for Christmas? Or what's the difference between a top sirloin and a bottom sirloin and a flank steak? Or how it's raised? Those are questions we can answer. We also support and help fund the Beef Quality Assurance Program in Colorado. And that program really helps teach producers just good practices on handling animals. And Janie will talk more about that, and it'll be in an exciting video we're going to show you. Education-wise, we do have a beef grant for family and consumer science classes. We support Ag in the Classroom. We have activity books. We have videos available to show in classrooms or for you to learn more. And then we always do promotion and marketing, trying to increase the sales of beef. So we use digital platforms, social media, and we have been using connected TV. So YouTube, all the streaming channels. So if we look at the demand issues that we see coming forward, and some of them are hiccups too. It's still supply chain. There's still inflation, absolutely. Weather, hey, we all just got a little bit of snow, and some people got rain and some people got nothing. But those gyrations really affect the market and the availability. And then there's also the geopolitical turmoil. It's interesting that over half of the population of the earth will go through some type of election this year. I mean, just think about how Putin just won unopposed. The US is going to have one. They've just done some in other parts of Europe and in Asia. So that continues. We have a new protein consumer. This is the generation that trusts nothing and wants everything verified. And so they trust and they like companies that they know more about, whether it's a brand that backs up a claim, or they can meet the farmer or rancher at the farmer's market. They want to know more about sustainability, and they're very into health and nutrition. And how does that fit? Protein is a good thing in their world. They care about the animals. And then it's all new to them because the social acceptance of production practices is new. So many people have not stepped foot on a farm or a ranch. And so the things that we've done for years, and we know why we do them, we know that it's good, and this is why, they don't understand. And they want to know more, and they want it verified. And then lastly, international marketing. Like I was saying, there is absolutely demand for beef overseas. The hearts and kidneys and livers really go to Egypt and to Africa. The tongues are going to Japan. That short plate, which is that bacon, goes to Japan, China, Korea, Taiwan. But one way we're able to learn more about consumers is through market research. And we're able to collaborate with the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, and they're a contractor to the beef checkoff through the Cattlemen's Beef Board. And we survey Colorado consumers. And in 2022, we started surveying consumers directly in the Front Range because that's where most beef purchasers live. And we want to try to better understand their needs and their wants. So if you look at this chart, we see that the blue color is the total US and the yellow are Colorado consumers. And those two groups are similar in their opinions sometimes, and sometimes they're not. They're similar in that they think that beef is great tasting and it's a good source of protein, that it has versatility and family appeal. But then if we look at some of the categories that Colorado differs in, we said there are lower levels of agreement about nutrition, value, and then production related categories. Actually, if you look to the far side, the right side of the chart, and not only is this the lowest section, but Colorado is lower than what a US consumer thinks. And most of those topics have to do with production practices. So they're less trusting of farmers and ranchers. They believe less that beef animals are raised humanely, and less of them know how food was raised. And so that tells us we need to do some more in what we're doing with education and promotion to help those consumers. So how do we encourage them to eat more beef? Colorado consumers tell us they need more ideas on meal ideas, and they want to know where their beef come from. So they're very consistent in their messages, and their wants really divide into two categories: beef, the meat, and beef and how it's produced. Regarding beef, the meat, they want to know about different cuts and the nutritional information. But they also want information on how cattle are raised and to know more about local beef and farmers and ranchers. And how do we give them those messages, or how do we talk to them? Those spokespeople who are best are veterinarians. They trust veterinarians and farmers and ranchers. They tell us they don't trust much and they want things verified, but that is who they trust. They do also trust USDA and FDA and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. They don't necessarily trust the news. They put a lot of stock in their family and friends. So it's really interesting on not only how they get their information, but who they trust. And if we look at sustainability can be defined a lot of ways. And in this survey, sustainability was not defined necessarily the way I would think. When I think of sustainability, I think of environmental. I think of, are you able to sustain your business? Are you making enough money to sustain? Colorado consumers and US consumers think of animal welfare. And so the question was actually, which of the following are the most important to address when it comes to beef and sustainability? Colorado consumers are also concerned about worker safety, greenhouse gases, carbon footprint, climate change, land use, and conservation. And many of those topics, farmers and ranchers have been working on for years and years. We just need to be able to share those messages and what we are doing with them in a different way so that we can reach them. This is an interesting chart. So here's the exact question. How much do you consider how your food was raised or grown when you are deciding to have a meal with beef, chicken, pork, fish, meat substitutes, or some other source of protein? So this is all about protein. And 70% of consumers told us they really consider how their food was raised or grown when they make those purchasing decisions. So they are watching. But then if we look at their perceptions and versus their knowledge, it can be very different. On a national basis, the overall perception of beef as a protein source is favorable. On a national basis, 71%, 62% in Colorado. Then we step down to knowledge. What is the knowledge of raising cattle for food in the US? On a national basis, it's 28%. On a Colorado basis, it's 26%. Somewhat knowledgeable is good too, because we recognize that people have talked to farmers and ranchers. They just don't maybe have all the answers. So we have to give them credit for being somewhat knowledgeable as well. But then if we look at the perception and what do they think of how cattle are raised for food? Colorado's perception is definitely lower than the national perception, and less favorable than the national perception. So again, we're at um, needing to really reach out and tell our story in a stronger way. So one way we started looking at that was at direct marketing. So Colorado added a question to this survey last time, and so it's only been asked once, so this is just very raw data, but 28% of consumers have purchased directly from a farm or ranch. And then when asked if they, what products they had purchased directly from a farm or ranch, other than beef, because that was what the 28% was, they said beef, followed by eggs, followed by vegetables, which actually makes perfect sense because those are the types of foods you're going to find at a farmer's market, or you're going to, people went looking for, especially during COVID, because those were the things that were not available on their grocery store shelves. So during COVID, the Colorado Beef Council started a local beef directory. And so both the Colorado Beef Council and Colorado Proud have helped enable consumers purchase directly, because Colorado Proud has a local directory as well. And so when the supplies were short on the shelves in the grocery store, we started the local directory. And today we have over 110 beef producers who've listed themselves on this directory. We know it's being used because we've had producers tell us, like, oh, I got some calls from this, or oh, I got some leads. And the interesting thing about the beef production cycle is that you don't always have availability, just like vegetables. Vegetables aren't necessarily available in December unless it's a type that could be stored. Same thing with beef. Lots of times it's on a cycle. And so you may need to call more than one farmer or rancher to find when it's going to fit your needs. But that local directory also, when they sign up, I give them the opportunity and the link to sign up with the Colorado Department of Education to be able to get on their local foods list and be able to sell to schools. Now, selling to schools can be a little trickier because schools have different purchasing systems. And absolutely, the beef has to be processed in a USDA inspected facility. Lucky for all of us, recently, like last week, Nourish Colorado published a guidebook that really is a pathway for selling to schools for all foods. And that can be found in that highlighted line there, guidebook.nourishcolorado.org. Now, in the beginning of the presentation, I mentioned that the Colorado Beef Council supports the Colorado Beef Quality Assurance Program. And I'm thrilled to tell you that our next speaker, Janie VanWinkle, and her family received the 2024 National BQA Award for cow-calf operations. And I'm going to share this video with you about their ranch, and then Janie is going to talk more about their journey after the video. And hopefully you guys can hear this.
Cows. We are fourth generation. Our intent has always been, since Howard and I were 18 years old, to work together on the ranch. We both had jobs in town or owned our own businesses in town, and all the while we were growing the ranching operation.
We calve mother cows out, raise the calves to weaning. We market the cattle on Superior. The calves are sold directly to a feedlot. On Compadre Plateau, we have a forest permit there for 587 head of cows. It's 39,000 acres. We rotate that. One year we go counterclockwise, the other year we go clockwise. We maintain the fences, we maintain the water, and we go on the 1st of June and we come off the 25th of October.
The elevation is somewhere around 8,000 to 9,000 feet. It's Quakies or quaking aspen landscape.
Because we run at high elevations, finding semen that's readily available on red Angus bulls that have the performance and still can go to high elevations is pretty tough. So we've found some bulls that we like. We've tried them in our herd that seem to make really nice females. And we're going to continue to do that in order to try to improve our cow herd and still be able to come back with a full-blood Charolais bull and get the most growth and most potential we can.
So we sell all of our market cows and bulls through our ground beef program, and a lot of them are sold through a food bank, and we do deliver meat to people. I mean, we're doing things right, and we needed to know we were doing things right. Beef quality assurance, we did it because it's a good marketing tool when we're marketing our livestock. The guys that buy our cattle know that we're trained and we do it right.
Well, I think that beef quality assurance gives us credibility with our consumers. They know that we are using best practices. They know that we have some training and they know that we think about it. We've worked really hard to make sure that what we're contributing to the local food supply is a high quality product.
We make sure that when we vaccinate cattle and handle cattle, we do it in the correct injection sites, and we also don't want to cause stress, and BQA helps us do that.
All of our guys are instructed, on terms of giving vaccines or giving shots to use the proper method, proper techniques.
Make sure everything's given in the neck and in the triangle. We use the right gauge and the right length of needles. The other thing is our working facilities. We make sure that everything's safe for the cattle and the people working the livestock.
Howard and Dean drive the trucks and do that in a manner that's consistent with best practices. And BQA helps us understand what those best practices are.
The main thing is don't be in a hurry and do not load it too heavy. Don't crowd those cattle in there.
I think through the BQA program and learning how to communicate, how to talk with not just our consumers, but talk with each other about problems and solving problems. Those are all critical components of bringing the next generation into the ranch.
I wouldn't be the person I am today without the industry that surrounds us. And, we want to teach our daughter how to do things right. We want to raise her and teach her how to produce a high quality protein for the world and simple things like that.
Standing right here in this field and looking around at what we see, we know that we're actively changing the land here for the better. We know that we're giving the livestock here a good life, and we know that we're making contributions in our community. We're doing good work, and that matters a lot.
So that's the end of what I have. Let me stop sharing and turn it over to Janie. Unless you guys have questions, do you want to take questions now or later?
We can see who's got questions. Does anybody have any questions for the information that Julie covered?
Okay.
Julie, that was great. And maybe just remind everybody, what is the website? Again, just,
Oh, for us?
Yeah, because you guys offer so many good resources as well.
So our website's really easy. It's cobeef.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you for that. Yes, and as Julie set up perfectly, our next speaker is, she's an experienced rancher, so this is going to be perfect. And she's going to talk about all the work that they do on the VanWinkle Ranch. And as Julie pointed out, they were this year honored with the National Beef Quality Assurance Cow-Calf Award. So that's really outstanding. Congratulations. And I also want to share that Janie and her family received more recognition this year for their ranching operation and advocacy efforts. Janie was actually awarded Citizen of the Year award from the Grand Junction Area Chamber of Commerce, while their ranch was named Small Business of the Year. So congratulations. That's really outstanding. Quite a good example for all of our businesses here in Colorado, focused on ranching. So Janie, I turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, and thank you. I'd like to just point out that the recognition received with the local Chamber of Commerce, I think that's important for all of agriculture, because when we see chambers of commerce recognizing food producers as businesses of the year, that's pretty exciting. That means that our communities are seeing the value of agriculture, not just from an economic development point, but also the kind of stewardship that we're providing across the landscape. So thank you for your notes on that. As stated in the video, we are a conventional cow-calf producer. We run somewhere in the neighborhood of between 500 and 600 head of cows here in Western Colorado around the Grand Junction area. I always say we are, our numbers are drought related. So on drier years, we scale down, and in the wetter years, we scale up. We have a couple of marketing avenues here at the ranch. We sell into the traditional food supply chain. So we sell our calves in the fall. They go typically to feedlots in Eastern Colorado, either, like the Yuma feedlots or into the Greeley area. And those cattle are fed out and then harvested and at the JBS or the Cargill plants in Eastern Colorado and distributed. So when people are telling me that they're worried about food or beef specifically in the local grocery stores, whether it's Kroger, City Market, or Safeway, Walmart, I let them know that 90% of the beef in our country is produced on ranches just like ours. So they are supporting a local family, even though they're buying through the traditional supply chain. Now, we also provide direct to consumer. We sell approximately 40,000 pounds of ground beef a year directly to the consumer. One of our biggest customers is the food bank. And I think, Christina, you mentioned that a lot of people don't know that food banks buy product. And that I just met with actually the CEO of Food Bank of the Rockies yesterday. And it was really interesting having that conversation, because I didn't know that food banks purchased items. I thought it was all donated. And so she shared with me some of the statistics around how that has changed, particularly since COVID. And that's when we started selling to the food banks. We were selling to a couple of smaller ones, churches, things like that. And one of them said, you should reach out to the Food Bank of the Rockies, who is actually, Food Bank of the Rockies is a distribution center for a lot of smaller food banks. So we've had a great relationship, a good working relationship. A number of their people have come out to the ranch and seen what we do. And I've also visited their facilities. We were a part of the groundbreaking and then the grand opening of a new facility here for Food Bank of the Rockies in, again, Western Colorado. So great recognition for all producers, whether it's livestock producers or on the plant side. Again, just to make that connection that we are food producers, that agriculture is important to the food on the plate. I have to say I was a little bit disturbed by some of Julie's numbers that we look at, that Colorado and the perceptions that Coloradoans have. So we certainly have a lot of work to do here, but I do see some encouraging pieces along with that. Really quickly, I just want to point out, recently I was appointed as a federal fellowship into a federal fellowship, and we're calling it the Agro West Initiative. I'm working with the Business Incubator here in Western Colorado. We're focused on economic development around agriculture. So those of you who are in Western Colorado will be talking more about that. I'm reaching out to a number of different commodities. I say from lavender to livestock. We're really trying to look at legacy producers as well as first generation, and how do we create an ecosystem that's positive for sustainable agriculture. And I think reaching to consumers is one of the best things that we can do. So I'm going to talk a little bit about why about our direct sales, direct to consumer sales. and why we decided to do that. Over the years, folks have asked over and over, would you sell beef? And we've just said no. We didn't have the time nor the resources to do it. In about 2017, we started selling ground beef, and we had one focus. That was to add value to a low value animal. And as we know, market cows and market bulls are kind of they're at the end of their life cycle. They've been good producers for us, but what do we do with them? They really didn't have a lot of value. So that was really our focus, was how do we add value to this low value product that we're producing? It's kind of interesting through the BQA program. I just mentioned that the focus of the beef quality audit that was just recently conducted, I believe, and Julie probably knows whether it was 22 or 23, but one of the focuses that came out of that beef quality audit was how we're handling the market cows and bulls. Those are the cows and bulls that are at the end of their life cycle, and what do we do with them and how do we care for them? So an added bonus for us with the ground beef program that we put in place at VanWinkle Ranch is that it's good. I call it a win-win-win. It's good for the cattle. Our cattle were previously they were going into the sale barn, and then later, probably for 4 or 5 years before we started our ground beef program, we began to excuse me just a moment. We were actually shipping direct to Kuna, Idaho. So those cattle were on trucks for 500-600 miles typically. And so now our market cows and bulls are sold, are processed, they're harvested right here in Mesa County. So we have a local USDA processor that we use. So it's a win for the cows, and you know, we spend our life caring for these cows, and they've done a good job for us. And I'm always pleased that it's a good thing for the cattle that they're harvested right here and are feeding our community. Which the second piece of the win-win-win is our community. Our direct to market customers are getting a good product at a value price, and they get to know who their producer is. But it also, with our work with the food bank, and we do a number of different charitable kinds of things. We typically donate at least 1 cow a year into a charity here that is providing foods. The one that we like the best, I guess, is Hope of the Grand Valley, and it's an organization that is giving a hand up, not a hand out, and we really like their philosophy. And so we do donate 1 cow every year, a ground beef cow, into their program. And the third win is for VanWinkle Ranch. It has truly been significant, and I can't stress this enough, because literally the cash flow has completely changed on our ranch since we began to sell ground beef. We have not been into our line of credit for at least 3 years, and it's simply because of the cash flow change with this program of the ground beef. So I encourage any producers to really take a look at this and how it can work for you, because it's certainly made a big difference for us. And I would also be remiss if I didn't mention that COVID gave us a nice little boost in this whole process as well. And the reason that happened, you know, we had been selling for a couple of years, and I'm a goal-oriented person. So I had set out in 2020, at the beginning of the year, our goal was to sell 200 pounds a month. That was my goal. By March 20th, I had sold my complete inventory, which was enough to last me through June based on my goal. And I didn't have any other, we do feed our cows grain for 60 days. And I didn't have enough product to meet that demand. So I started taking names. Finally, in July, I get around to where I have more available. And every single person on my list purchased what they said they would purchase. And I found that really interesting, because a lot of times people put their names on a list, and then it's kind of like the webinar we were talking about. You sign up, but you don't, you're going to do it later. But we were pleasantly surprised, every single person on that list. And I have not been out of stock on ground beef since July of 2020. We just make that a goal, and we ensure that those cows are in the rotation. And that's been a huge boon and a huge piece of our business at VanWinkle Ranch. And Barb and I talked, and with Julie too, we talked about some of the lessons learned. So for the producers, one of the things that was a huge added value to our already adding value to our ground beef was to pull the tenderloins off of these older cows. My producer, after I'd been doing this for about a year and a half, he said, Janie, why don't you pull the tenderloins off of these cows? And I said, well, they're old cows. The tenderloins aren't going to be any good. He said, let me show you something. So the next couple cows, he cut some tenderloins for me, and just they're packaged in a small package, 7 to 10 ounces. There's 2 little steaks in a package. We call it cowboy candy. It is unbelievable. We sell that for about $12. Well, sell them for $12 a package, which equates to somewhere between $20 and $25 a pound. That's added value that right off the top. So all those cows that go to the food banks, we pull those tenderloins off of, and that is just, again, adding value to a low value animal. They are amazing. The second piece that's been kind of interesting that has developed is the market for dog food, and started getting requests for ground organ meat. And I personally kind of had to gulp, frankly, but it is a fairly good market, and we sell that in 1 pound packages, ground organ meat, heart and liver. There are people who ask for other pieces to be included in that, but again, my goal in all of this is to keep it simple. And so our ground organ meat contains 50% heart and 50% liver. And it's ground together. Some people feed it raw, some people cook it, but it's an amazing, again, it's an added value to our product. So that's a big win. Working with our local processor, again, as we all know, it's really sometimes a challenge to connect with your processor and be able to get dates. Because we've been fairly consistent, we've found that our processor has been really willing to work with us. And when I started asking him about dog food, he actually had some information and knew what my customers were asking, because I really didn't. So developing that relationship is a really critical piece. Answering consumer questions, that's another kind of one of the lessons learned. Again, I've learned not to be surprised or sometimes appalled by the questions that folks ask and want to know. And we're very open. If you want to know how castration works, we'll talk about how castration works. If you want to know how these animals are humanely euthanized for slaughter, we'll talk about that. If you want to know what we do with baby calves, we'll talk about that. And those kinds of things I'm hoping, Julie, that we start to see a rise in those Colorado statistics. That's very concerning to me, and it really makes me kind of double down on my advocacy efforts, to be honest with you, because we have to do a better job of connecting with our consumers, because they're also voters. And as we know in Colorado, that ballot initiative can be rather detrimental to producers. So very important that we build those relationships. The last thing as far as lessons learned that I want to talk about is we use a rack card that has our prices and kind of the stats of our product, a few pictures, and then on the back of it, we tell our story that we did work in town for 35 years to be able to work on the ranch together. We talk about our son coming home from college and joining on the ranch, and that our granddaughter will be the 6th generation to produce high quality protein in Western Colorado. We just really try to make that connection with people. And I think any way you can do that, we also have a website, VanWinkleRanch.com. We have a website that kind of helps to tell our story. And I think that's really important, that we're looking for ways. Have a fairly solid social media presence on Facebook, where, again, we post every single day what goes on VanWinkle Ranch, because I want to be as transparent as I can possibly be. I want to tell them what the sunrise and the sunset looks like. I want to tell them about seeing that flop of the ear when a newborn baby hits the ground. But I also want to tell them when there's a sick calf, what we do, and talk about antibiotics, because that's a question that a lot of our consumers have, is, does this meat have antibiotics in it? And I can unequivocally say if it's USDA inspected, absolutely not, because we follow the withdrawal period. So those are all, things that are just ways that we try to connect with our consumers. So I do have kind of some thoughts of some things that are on our radar for 2024, but I just might stop and ask, are there any questions from anybody right now?
If
Seeing
I
none, I'll keep. Oh, go ahead, Christina.
Sorry, I'm supposed to be a
That's okay.
fly on the wall. Um, I'm just curious. So a lot of the ranchers, most of the ones that I'm kind of connecting with lately are really small. And I hear consistently that finding processors is so hard. It's so hard. It's so hard to get in. Before you build that relationship, I mean, do you have any tips on that? I just find that people are just so booked out. They just have a really hard time. And a lot of times they'll try to be like, oh, we can offer you a cow. And I'm like, I can't do anything if you drop a cow in my parking lot. So I just don't know how to help them there.
It- You know, Christina, that's an issue that we're certainly grappling with as a beef community. It absolutely is. In a lot of places, there's being we call it hook space. We're expanding a little bit. We've got to find that balance because processing facilities are expensive to build, they're expensive to operate. So we have to find that balance. Obviously, we're not there yet. So we have to
Okay.
keep working on that. But
So
I
just
would
something
say
everybody's suffering with. Okay.
we kind of are, but I also think, and Julie mentioned this a little bit around the seasonality of our work, and perhaps reaching out to the processor and go down to the facility and sit down and they probably won't sit down because they're all worker bees. But talk to them and say, if I could have cows in here in May and June, if I can consistently provide a cow for you or 3 cows for you at this particular time of the year, would that help you? And in turn, can I get that scheduled? And just kind of look for those processors have problems too, as the same as we as producers do. So perhaps there's a way we can work something out that solves a problem we both have. And I don't know what that looks like, Christina, but I would highly encourage them to reach out to their local processors and ask. And I think timing is one of the big challenges. Hunting season, a lot of these smaller processors they also do big game for their bottom line. So obviously from August through November is not a great time for them because they're doing so much big game. So can we come in May and June, or can we talk with getting our product? Can we figure out how to get it ready for January and February? So that would be my suggestion, is look, how can we solve problems together?
Okay, so
I don't
just a
know.
lot of planning ahead and a lot of relationship building communication. Okay. No, I let them, like I said, that's the first thing I always hear is like, I'd love to give you a cow, but I just have to give you the cow. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that.
Yeah, can't find a process. But
Yeah.
maybe, Christina, I just thought of this. Maybe you develop the relationship with local processor. I just thought of that. Perhaps you say to a processor, I have from time to time opportunities to get beef from our producers, but they can't get something processed. Is there a way that I could help promote you and the work that you do if you can help me get these cows kind of slid in here? I don't know what that might look. My guy would be all over it, I can tell you that.
Yeah, no, that's great. I appreciate that. Yeah,
Yeah,
any way I can help. I mean, then I'm helping 3 people, the producer, the
absolutely.
processor, and my community. So win-win for everybody. So awesome. Thanks for that.
Love it. Love those win-win-wins.
Exactly.
Any other questions? That was a good one. So talking about market outlook for 2024, I just saw a piece on coming through my email this morning that the cattle prices are continuing upward, which from a producer standpoint, that's a good thing. And I know there's some producers who feel like it's going too high because there is going to be questions What will the consumer be willing to pay for? And I just had a conversation at breakfast with my husband. These market cows, they've been, geez, I remember the good old days, haha, when they were selling for 60, 70 cents a pound. The last couple of years, they've been hovering around $1 a pound. That's for the whole cow, the one that you don't want, Christina. That $1 a pound. But we just heard yesterday from actually our banker that cattle sold here in our local livestock auction, market cows and bulls, or market cows sold for $1.40 a pound. So you can see they've doubled literally since I would say since 17 and 18, and those are not scientific numbers, so don't hold me to those. But we're going to see that impact, on the consumer side, because what is the consumer willing to pay? But I would also say to direct marketers, don't forget to pay yourself. I think that's a critical piece that a lot of times we forget as producers. And so we think, well, we could sell these cows for this price. We can sell ground beef for, I see it for $4 or $5 a pound. If you're doing that, you're leaving money on the table, because you could take the cows to the livestock auction and sell them for significantly more. So I want to say to any producers that are either on the call or watching this later, don't forget to pay yourself. It is a business. We can't do it for nothing. We have to pay ourselves. So some things on our radar, that's kind of that was my little soapbox there, pay yourself. Things on our radar, things that we're looking at. You saw in the video, we are packaging our VanWinkle Ranch beef in VanWinkle Ranch packaging. That was not a huge undertaking, and it was not significantly cost prohibitive. And it's pretty cool to see our VanWinkle Ranch packaged. Frankly, in the food bank, I was there yesterday. I saw, a pallet of VanWinkle Ranch beef, and what the food bank is telling me, that their donors love seeing that packaging in the food bank when they do a tour, because a lot of times those donors are the people who are buying directly from me. So that's kind of ended up being an added benefit. And I will tell you that the food bank is the one who encouraged me to look at ways to package in a branded packaging. So that was kind of interesting. The second thing we're kind of, again, on our radar, just started in the last couple of months, is reaching out to retail outlets. I currently, VanWinkle Ranch ground beef. And again, we stay focused on ground beef because we're adding value to that low value product. But we retail our ground beef in 3 different places here in Grand Junction. We're in a meat market. Interestingly enough, a small family-owned meat market doesn't sell any locally produced meat. And I said, well, let me help you with that. And they love it because I boost them on Facebook. Again, it's a win-win-win. I boost them on Facebook. They're getting new customers into their store who are also buying other products while they're there. I'm getting new customers. I just had one yesterday, Colin. I bought 2 or 3 pounds of your ground beef at Quality Meats, but I want to buy more. And I'm more than happy to help them and accommodate them. So those retail outlets, there's a little farm store that they have a greenhouse and they have a small cooler. And I just stopped in there and said, hey, do you have any ground beef that you're selling? They said, no, but we'd love some. Boom, VanWinkle beef. I deliver 30, 40 pounds a week to that little farm store. And then a winery has begun to carry our product as well. So kind of hitting all ends of the spectrum as far as who shops where, but I think we'll probably end up doing more of that. Third piece I would talk about, I think we've talked a little bit about it, but schools, and Julie mentioned, what the school requirements are. What I see, particularly in our larger school district here, is the aggregation requirements, but I'm beginning to see some fruits of labor, and that is I have been talking to the school district since 2019 here, and this is a 22,000 student school district. I know they're having more success in a couple of the smaller ones, but into the 24-25 school year, they're actually going to do locally produced meatloaf 4 times. 4 times. And I was like, only 4 times? And then I went, it's 4 times. That's 4 times more than they were doing it before. So that's part of that initiative of getting local food into the schools. So don't give up. That's an important piece. But again, the aggregation requirements, it's going to take somebody to aggregate and bring those cows together because like you said, Christina, they don't really want cows on the hoof. They need it packaged. So there's going to be some work that has to be done there. Colorado Proud, doing things like this and kind of marketing ourselves as Colorado Proud. I haven't really focused on that for a little while, but it's something that is on my radar. The last thing, kind of in the interest of time here, I just want to mention the Beef Council and the good work that they do. Julie, I probably talk to Julie, I don't know, once or twice a month. I call her up and say, hey, what do you think about this? She's a great resource to bounce things off of for producers. And I would say also for larger organizations like food banks, schools. Julie, I'm giving you lots of credit here, but she's a good resource. And if she doesn't know the answer, she knows somebody who does. And I've appreciated that Beef Council being there for a resource. So that's kind of what we're looking at, things that we're doing here at VanWinkle Ranch. And again, I'll take a few questions and hopefully, Barb, that's about the amount of time you were looking for.
That was perfect. Great concepts, great conversation. Christina, really good question about processing. Because it's I would say a statewide challenge. Even here on the eastern side of the mountains, it can get challenging to find processing. Does anybody have any questions for Janie or Julie?
Janie, can you talk a little bit more about your relationship with BQA and how that kind of interaction goes?
Yeah, actually, let me think about that a little bit. We do have a relationship with BQA in that Libby Bigler is the BQA coordinator here in Colorado. And I've been at a number of the trainings that Libby does and kind of really work to hear what she has to say. I can give you a really specific example of something that came out of a BQA discussion of training that we were in. My husband and I were there in Delta. It's probably been 2 years ago when we were last certified. And one of the things that they talked about were shouting at cattle, hollering at cattle. Mm-hmm. And they talked about what that can, how that's detrimental. And we used to yell at cows. We rarely yell at cows anymore. We rarely yell at them. And a lot of that's come through education with BQA, but we saw something in action because one of the things that Libby said, a lot of times if you're pushing cows from the back and you holler at them or you yell at them, they're going to look back to see what you're doing. And we saw this in action about a week later. I love this situation. So we were loading a bull onto a trailer that didn't want to get on. And he had come back once, and he had come back because somebody that was with us ran up behind him. And just as he was about to step in, they yelled at the bull from behind him, which I will tell you 5-6 years ago, I probably would have done the same thing. And that bull, literally, we saw what Libby was talking about, what the trainer at the BQA training was talking about. That bull turned around and looked behind him and then turned around, came back. And so that was a great example of some of the things that we've learned. BQA is also available online, but I know that there's trainings around the state. And that's, I would recommend trying to get to one of those trainings, but it is also online. And they do have a transportation piece that my husband, as driving the trucks and hauling the cattle, has also done that I think is really important. So again, it's a marketing tool. When we talk about it with our clients, we tell them that, we have a voluntary program. And I think the number, and Julie, you probably know this, like 85% of the cattle and I don't know if this is Colorado, but they do go through ranches that are BQA certified. So that's a big number. That's pretty cool. I'm not sure if that's what you were looking about, kind of thinking about, but if there's something more specific, tell me.
No, that was a great example. Thank you.
Well, excellent. Yeah, good question, Sarah. Any other questions for our experts? Well, thank you so much. I know you're both very busy, and this is so important to get this information out. Janie, thank you for all that you shared. I agree. I think everything that you and your ranch are doing helps all small businesses, and certainly agriculture, whatever type of farm or ranch people are operating. It's quite impressive, and it's something to aspire to. Julie, thank you. Great slides, great information. Some of it disturbing, like Janie said, but we have our work cut out for us. Colorado has changed a lot in its demographics over the past few decades. So, I think we can do it. We just have to keep getting the information out there. So Colorado Proud members, join us in April, on April 15th for our webinar, where we're going to be talking about maximizing your profits at farmers markets. Farmers market season is coming up quickly, and it'll be a great opportunity for us to learn what we can do to increase our sales. We also have a new podcast coming out later this month. It'll be part 4 of Marketing on a Budget, where we're going to be focusing on utilizing digital media as a part of your marketing plan. So thank you very much, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.